大家好，欢迎收看成长汉语。Hi everyone, it's time for another episode of Growing Up with Chinese. Now, I was 7 when I started learning Chinese, so there's a lot about the process that I don't remember very well. But one thing I do remember is setting up a little food shop at home for Chinese class one day, and a vocabulary for buying things. My sister and I took turns running the shop, buying and selling bananas and apples and all kinds of fruit. It was a lot of fun. And all this buying and selling vocabulary and phrases are very useful to know. After all, China is a shopper's paradise. Now, I bring this up now because today we're following Mike and Xiaoming to the neighborhood fruit vendor. Now, if you all remember, Xiaoming's mom last time told Xiaoming to buy some fruit while he was out. So let's take a look and see how buying and selling is done in Chinese.
麦克，前面有一个水果摊儿，我们买点水果吧。
好啊，你想买点什么水果？
我想吃苹果和香蕉，你呢？
那我们买苹果吧，我也想吃苹果。
你好，请问苹果多少钱一斤？
国光苹果5块钱一斤，富士的3块钱一斤，你想要哪种？
我们有国光苹果吧，要2斤。
好的，您还要点什么？
橘子呢？多少钱一斤？
橘子8块。
8块，太贵了。
这橘子很新鲜，8块钱一斤不贵。
能便宜一点吗？
那7块钱一斤吧，怎么样？
好的，我要1斤。
好的，稍等。
一共多少钱？
一共17。
好的，给您20块钱。
好的，找您3块。水果您拿好。
好的，谢谢您，再见。
Well, watching the clip today brought back some memories for me. Okay, there's a lot of back and forth in today's clip, wasn't there? Now, depending on where you shop in China, sometimes you need to bargain for what you're buying. And Xiaoming did just that today. Let's take a look. Mike, 前面有一个水果摊，我们买点水果吧。Mike, the fruit stand is just ahead. Let's buy some fruit, okay? Now, fruit is sold in supermarkets here, but there are also many vendors that sell fresh produce, kind of like a farmer's market in the West. Now, the fruit you buy from a vendor is usually a lot fresher than what you might find in a supermarket.
麦克，前面有一个水果摊儿，我们买点水果吧。
好啊，你想买点什么水果？
我想吃苹果和香蕉。
请问 Now, if we break this saying apart, 请 means please, and 问 means to ask. It's what is used to alert someone if you're about to ask them a question, kind of like excuse me in English. You don't necessarily need 请问 to ask a question, just like you don't always have to use excuse me before asking a question in English. But if you do use it, 请问, it's considered very polite. 请问苹果多少钱一斤? Excuse me, how much are the apples per 500 grams? 多少钱, or how much money, is the phrase used in Chinese when asking for the price of something. 一斤, or 1 jin, is a unit of weight equal to half a kilogram, or 500 grams. Now, China uses the metric system. So for those of you unfamiliar with it, 500 grams is a little bit more than 1 pound.
你好，请问苹果多少钱一斤？
国光苹果5块钱一斤，富士的3块钱一斤，你想要哪种？
我们有国光苹果吧，要2斤。
好的，您还要点什么？
橘子呢？多少钱一斤？
橘子8块。
太贵了。 这橘子很新鲜，8块钱一斤，不贵。能便宜一点吗？ That's too expensive. These oranges are very fresh. 8 kwai per gin isn't expensive. Can it be a little bit cheaper? I do love bargaining. 能便宜一点吗 is a common phrase used in China when you're bargaining.
8块，太贵了。
这橘子很新鲜，8块钱一斤，不贵。
能便宜一点吗？
那7块钱一斤吧，怎么样？
好的，我要1斤。
一共多少钱 How much for everything? 一共 means altogether or in total. So 一共多少钱 is altogether how much money or how much money for everything.
一共多少钱？
一共17。
好的，给您20块钱。
好的，找您3块。水果您拿好。
好的，谢谢您，再见。
Okay, it's time to check out today's vocabulary. All right, let's take a word at some specific vocabulary. 买 to buy. 买多少 how much 多少钱 money 钱贵 expensive 贵便宜 cheap or cheaper 便宜新鲜 fresh as in fresh fruit 新鲜水果 fruit 水果香蕉 banana 香蕉苹果 apple 苹果橘子 orange 橘子Seeing as a lot of the dialogue in today's show revolves around money, I thought it might be fun to focus on the metal or gold radical. And yes, we do find it in the character for money, 钱. So let's bring up 钱. Take a look at it. And then break it apart. Okay, so here we have 钱, or the character for money. Let's take a look at the radical. It kind of resembles this character, doesn't it? You see a similar resemblance there? Well, this is the actual character for gold, 金. Now, when it turns into a radical, this is what it becomes. Now, really, if you look at it, you've got 2 gold nuggets here, right? So when it becomes a radical, it loses its gold nuggets. But you can still see the resemblance. Everything else looks pretty similar. Now, in ancient China, gold, silver, bronze, and copper were all used as currency. So it's quite fitting that the character for money would have a metal or gold radical, isn't it? Now, some other characters with the metal radical are 针, needle, 钟, clock, 锅, a pot for cooking. So the metal radical is our radical of the day. We've got a fun topic lined up for our cultural spotlight today. What not to give as gifts in China. Funny, isn't it, that we should be discussing what not to give as opposed to what is good to give. Now, as far as a gift goes, anything is nice to receive, right? I mean, the same is true in China, although as with any culture, certain things have certain meanings, and sometimes they aren't always good. In China, it's always good when giving more than one of something to give an even number. For example, if you give someone flowers, it's best that you give 2, 6, 8, 10, and so on. Now, this is because Chinese has a saying, good things come in pairs. so you want an even number. That's easy to follow. Did you notice I left the number 4 out of my number list just then? Now, we all know the number 4 is pronounced 4, fourth tone, right? Well, the word for death, or to die, is pronounced 死, third tone. Too close for comfort. So the number 4 in China is avoided at all costs. This includes having 4s in your telephone number, license plate number, room number, and even floor number. Many buildings in China do not have a listed 4th floor, much like how many Western buildings in Western countries don't have a floor 13. So avoid 4. Avoid 4. There's another custom in China that dictates no one is allowed to give a clock or watch to someone who is old. Song is the character used to give a gift. It's a verb, song. Zhong is the word for clock. So song zhong means to give a clock. If you switch the character for clock to the character for the end, which just so happens to also be pronounced zhong, you could understand the phrase to mean giving someone the end. Not good. I love playing with words, especially in Chinese. It's always a lot of fun. But it's time to put playing with words aside, and let's take a look at some of today's specific language points. 太贵了. That's too expensive. We've got a pattern here. 太 plus adjective plus 了 is used to express an excess of something, kind of like the word too, T-O-O, in English. 太贵了, too expensive. 太热了, too hot. 太大了, too big.
小明，你看，那条小狗太可爱了。
是啊，我真想抱抱它。
一点儿, a little bit. You can also say 一点 and leave off the R if you want. This is used after an adjective or verb to express a slight change in degree or number. 便宜一点儿, slightly cheaper. You could also say 便宜点儿. The one doesn't always have to be there. So 大一点儿, slightly bigger. 多一点儿, slightly more. 好一点儿, slightly better. You can also add another 点 for emphasis. 便宜一点点, 大一点点. The nuances of language.
爸爸，我写作业呢，你能把电视声音关小一点吗？
哦，对不起，对不起。
小明，我怎么总也投不进去啊？
兰兰，你的手再用一点力就能投中了。
一共 altogether, in total, is pretty straightforward. But let's take a look at some ways in which it can be used.
小明，你们班有多少个学生啊？
我们班一共有30个学生，14个男同学，16个女同学。
小明，看你这一身汗，又去打篮球了吧？
是啊，我今天一共打了2场比赛呢。
I am counting on all of you to work on your purchasing vocabulary so that when you get the chance to visit China, you'll all be top buyers and even top bargainers. And on that note, it's time to wrap up for the day. Don't forget to check out our website from time to time, and please keep your letters coming our way. We love to hear from you. And speaking of letters, does anyone know any good jokes? If you send me some, I'll fit them into the show. Perhaps we can even translate them into Chinese if they aren't too complicated. Okay, that's it for today. I will see you all next time. 谢谢你们的收看。加油，再见。